Hey everybody, my name's Andres,
I'm Scott.
And I'm Abe.
and welcome to Between Two Stands, a show that takes a closer look at the personalities that make up the Detroit Symphony Orchestra.
So today, we've gotten some feedback, and it's a lot of times we realize that we're talking about composers and pieces like everybody knows them. And some of the feedback we've gotten has been like, we don't know what you're talking about. And that got us discussing
But we love your beautiful faces.
Right. We don't know what you're saying, but we love your faces.
Lots of feedback about that.
Yeah, I mean, really, if that's how you feel, like, don't stop sending those messages. Like,
Yeah.
we love it. But anyway, so we wanted to have a discussion about like how to appreciate the music if you're less familiar with it, or how to approach a concert if you've never been to one. So, Andres, do you have any tips for like our novice classical music goers?
You know, I actually kind of I enjoy when someone comes to a show that's never been to an orchestra performance before. It's kind of like a fun challenge, and personally,
Wait, what do you mean by challenge?
Well, it's a fun challenge for me to kind of find a concert that they would like to go to, so I kind of asked them, what kind of music do you like? Do you like, piano? Do you like orchestra? Do you like singing? Do you like choir? And, if there's a concert that's coming up, I'll try and kind of tailor a show to their liking. But, let's face it, long programs, maybe that's not the best way to throw someone in there. Personally, we all love Mahler, right? But that's a lot to handle for a first timer, So, for example, my wife hasn't really been into, classical music before we were together. So it's been many years of introducing her to music that she likes. I think she's a fan now. Maybe not though. I hope so too.
So.
No.
Yeah.
No?
I'll find out. Comment below, Shayna. But yeah, so I feel like people have this feeling of coming to a show and it has to be serious, and you have to listen with a very discerning ear, and you have to know the music beforehand and read the pamphlet. But I think at the end of the day, it's just if you have fun that night, then that's a good night. It's kind of simple to me. So, maybe a pop show would be a great first time thing for people. I think that's a fun night, and maybe, if you like piano, take them to a piano concerto. But I think that's kind of the way to do it. Just like anything else, you kind of have to start with something that you like and then branch out from there.
Honestly, I would say the easiest way to approach it. I mean, there's also sometimes there's this weird stigma, right, about whether you clap, where you don't clap, and so coming to a classical music concert for the first time. Some people feel pressured by the etiquette. I'd say don't worry about it. If you feel like clapping at the end of a movement, clap. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Also, in terms, like Andres said, in terms of listening with a discerning ear, really, the music is there to move you. And so if you just sit back and relax and enjoy the music, then, and assuming that we do our jobs well and play well, hopefully you'll like it and come to appreciate the music that we're playing.
I mean, I completely agree with both of you. Whenever there are new people at the hall, it brings me so much joy, and it's it's awesome. And if I can be the one to introduce that music to somebody, I think it's fantastic. But I also think that if you don't have a musician in the Detroit Symphony to help curate your concert experience, you can actually do a pretty good job of curating your own based on what you already know you like. So movie music is one of the things that most people can at least recognize, identify. And I think that, if you love the John Williams Star Wars, maybe The Planets, because there's an obvious tie-in there. There's thematic material that's very similar.
What's the tie-in with the planets?
With the planets in Star Wars?
Yeah. What's Star Wars?
Yeah. So
don't listen to me. It's fine.
but also I think that Andres is also really right about the length of how long you want to pay attention to something, because a symphony is actually usually a pretty serious work, and it has 4 big chunks, and they can be quite long unless they're early symphonies, which then might not be as emotionally expressive as some of the movie music that I'm talking about. But a lot of ballet music is in shorter chunks. So like Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet, or even like the Nutcracker Suite, or Suite from Swan Lake. That
or the Planets.
The Planets is pretty long.
It's in shorter chunks.
I mean,
no, okay.
But with like theme and variation stuff, like all that stuff has like those, it's like little morsels as opposed to like a big heavy cake or something. Although I do like cake, but yeah, you know what I mean.
And then there's some pieces that have stories along with them, like Strauss tone poems. Till Eulenspiegel's Merry Pranks has like a very famous story about this prankster that gets himself into trouble, and that really helped me get into music when I started out, knowing the story and then listening to the music and identifying the characters. And I think that you can find this stuff out if you want to dig. But if not, you can think about what you already know and what you already like. And if you just look, come up with a playlist, see if any of those pieces are coming up that your orchestra's playing, and go check it out, and realize that we want you there, even if you know nothing, even if you don't know what to wear. That's fine. Come anyway. We want you there. We want to see you, and it might just be an experience that you really enjoy.
I always tell people they ask what do I wear, and it's it's kind of a big range, if you feel like you see people in tuxedos and dressed to the nines, and you also see people kind of in jeans, and it's kind of it's kind of whatever you feel like doing that night. Maybe don't dress in like a tank top and a bikini or something, although that'd be kind of entertaining, but within reason.
You're just picturing me in a bikini.
Yes,
yeah.
Very entertaining. I don't have to picture it. I have, you've seen it before.
I thought you deleted those photos.
But I asked someone someone who's into wine, is this a good wine? I was drinking a glass of wine. They're like, do you like it? I was like, yeah, I do. And it's like, well, it's a good wine. And I kind of feel that way about music. Sure, this one is regarded as a classic, and this one is avant-garde, and this one is whatever. But if you like it, then you like it, and that's all that matters. And I feel like people sometimes get kind of in their own head about how they should be listening to music, or especially classical music, or going to the concert. And it should be fun at the end of the day. It should be fun. So, I don't know if this is kosher for me to say, but I even tell people, come to the first half. I think you'll like the first half, and that's a good amount of music for people for the first time,
I know what you mean. Yeah,
I mean, stay the whole time though, right?
We'd love you to stay, but yeah.
My favorite parts of the concerts is usually the second half, but not always. And sometimes it does seem like, wow, this is a long concert, and the first half had such a great ending. I don't blame people, but I also think it's important to know that it's okay to not like something, even if it's famous for being great.
Yeah,
like Mozart's 40th Symphony, that's the G minor.
Right.
It's really, really famous, but for a long time I thought it was pretty boring, and it feels.
Dare you, Scott? How
I know.
Dare you?
It feels like you can feel a little bit of shame from people for thinking that, but like any art, it's subjective, and so
absolutely
you can think, well, maybe Mozart's just, I don't like the classical period as much. It doesn't speak to me as much as something later, something more expressive in a way that speaks to me.
Bruckner.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Bruckner. Actually,
but that being said, I think a cool tip also is kind of what you were talking about with tone poems. Like, it's kind of cool going into it knowing the story, and then you're like, oh, that does sound like a prankster. Oh, that does sound like, his head getting chopped off, or sorry to ruin the story, but or let's say you're about to listen to a symphony. It's kind of fun reading about it on Wikipedia, online, or even in the book before you hear it, and then it gives it context. Like any of Shostakovich's symphonies, if you hear about what was going on in Russia, at the time, you're like, whoa, this is kind of heavy, and it gives it it gives it context. So I feel like that always helps.
And with Shostakovich, there's the added layer of he had to write it in such a way that it was approved by the council, even though he might have intended it as completely different. He might have just had a different intention behind the music.
Right.
I feel like his Ninth Symphony in particular is like a great example of sarcasm and wit.
It's his shortest. Isn't that his shortest symphony?
Yeah. I think so.
The expectation was that it should be, most
grandiose.
Beethoven 9, Mahler 9, right? All of these great Ninth Symphonies. This one should have been his most grand, and it was just sarcastic and short and.
I really think that I would hate that piece if I didn't know that it was like the whole context of it and why he wrote it the way he did and other ways.
Right.
Like I would think it'd be like, well, that was kind of weird. Shostakovich usually writes these kind of grandiose, heavy things, and then he wrote this like small neoclassical, odd, quirky piece.
But it makes it so much cooler, right? Like, I feel like it's like, wow, this is pretty cool that he, kind of flipped the bird for all intents and purposes to Stalin and just wrote this dinky piece. I mean, it's still a cool piece. I do enjoy it.
It's really great. It's so effective. Like, it's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so I think like just giving it context is helpful. Which, I mean, I feel like that's the same with any genre of music. Like, if the more you know about it, the more you appreciate it,
Well, or any genre of art in general, I think.
Yeah.
Because like it's still life for me. The painting, it's like, okay, well, there's some fruit in a bowl, and then I look at another still life, and it's some fruit in a bowl, and then I look at another one, and it's also fruit in a bowl.
Maybe a chicken hanging in the background.
Yeah, something. And I mean, I understand that there's way, way more to it, and they're speaking a different language than I understand.
Yeah.
Like, there's a certain amount of visual art that, like, I do think I understand, at least to a small degree. But I get how music to some people is like the still lives to me, where it's like I don't understand the difference. But if I wanted to, if I was watching this and heard artists talk about this is really exciting, this is really important, then that might give me a clue onto the context and how to look into it. So I think it's great.
Yeah, I would mirror that sentiment, Scott. With there was a painting I saw. I don't even know if it was a painting. I went to a museum and there was just this white board, and it was just white, and then next to it was just this big red board, and it was all red. And I just remember getting really angry. It's like, I could have done that.
But you didn't.
But you didn't, dude.
But the point,
exactly.
Right? So like, and Andres brought up some avant-garde earlier, right? So like, there's this. It's supposed to create a response to the listener, right, or to the viewer in the case of visual art, right? And you think about pieces like 4 minutes and 33 seconds, right, by John Cage, where it is for the performers and the audience to sit in silence for 4 minutes and 33 seconds and listen to the sounds that are happening around you.
Yeah.
And how that, and what does that do for people? It can be quite deafening, that silence.
Yeah.
If it's silent, or you hear the discomfort of the audience, or if they don't know what the program is or what 4 minutes and 33 seconds is, it's kind of like a joke at first. Is what's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it comes across that way, right? You'll get people start to giggle. Performers have trouble keeping straight faces through it. I mean, it's...
Well, especially if you make eye contact with the wrong person.
It's effective. It's effective though.
It really is an effective piece.
Yeah.
So is there anything that you would avoid if you were like, would you tell people like, maybe not your first concert, like that's a lot?
Bruckner. Definitely not Bruckner your first concert.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Bruckner to me is like, yeah, the pieces are long-winded. They're very structure-based. There are lots of stretches of time where not much happens. But then...
You're telling me, Scott.
Every now and, like, in this hour-long symphony, you'll get, like, several moments, I would say, in each one that I've played, that it's like, wow, that is incredible.
Yeah.
It doesn't always last very long, and it doesn't necessarily like hold your attention through the entire hour. But
far and few between, Scott.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like an oasis in the desert.
But I would encourage somebody to find, if I was, to find maybe a pretty diverse program where there's something maybe kind of early, like maybe a Mozart overture, and then something new. Right, where there's like a new work, and then maybe just a regular symphony, even if it is a Bruckner symphony, right? Just so that you kind of experience a wide variety of the different styles of music that orchestras can play.
Yeah, I could see that. I also think that for me, it would be important to have some heavy hitter famous piece that's been in like lots of movies. If somebody was singing Nessun Dorma or like some aria highlights, like, that's going to be the one you're going to recognize. You're going to be able to cling to that. Yeah. Or Rhapsody variations on the theme of Paganini, something like that. It's like really famous, and other things that you can maybe branch out on. I might get some flack for this. I might avoid like a Brahms symphony. So I feel like what makes Brahms really amazing isn't necessarily the first time you hear it just what sticks with you. It's like if you can get into the details of how it was constructed and everything else, then you realize, wow, it's amazing to listen to, but also that's partly because of the way it was constructed.
I want to say, though, like, if I'd never heard Brahms... Is it Brahms 1 with that big horn solo in the fourth movement?
Yeah, I mean, it's still pretty great.
That's, like, I remember hearing that for the first time. And I know that I was, like, I'm classically trained. I've been playing the cello since I was 3, right? But, like, the first time I heard that, I just remember having, like, goosebumps all up and down my body. I mean, it was just...
Well, it is a horn solo. So.
Right. But still, I mean, just like that, there are certain moments. There are certain moments, even in the heavy hitter pieces, that you can really cling to as emotionally gripping or something that you really react to.
Well, and that goes to prove the point too that
horn solos
are just the greatest moments of music. No. They prove the point that like different things can stand out for different people. Like it can be. It would have been really hard for me to get into, say, Brahms' Fourth Symphony when I was in high school and I was just like getting to know this rep so much. But
I was going to say another thing to do is, we would love to have people in orchestra hall, but it's also fun to make an event, do a picnic when we go to Greenfield Village or when we go to other places out, listen to music outdoors. That's always a fun way to, kind of stick your foot in, so to speak, so you're not like sitting in a chair for 2.5 hours. You're in a picnic with friends and family. So I feel like that's always a fun way to do that. I remember, in Tanglewood and up in the Berkshires, they have those outdoor concerts, and it's like, people are drinking wine, people are having their sandwich, talking to friends, and that's a really fun way to experience a concert too,
Yeah, I mean, most orchestras are really trying a lot of different ways to reach audiences with different tastes, and so if you look, then you'll probably see something.
Absolutely. Well, guys, maybe we should move on to our interview with Hunter.
Yeah, sure.
I think with all this talk about music, maybe we should hear some.
Yeah. So we are really excited to have Hunter join us today. He's a principal trumpet of the Detroit Symphony, obviously. And we are going to listen to him or watch him play the national anthem in Comerica Park.
Nice job, Hunter.
That sounded great.
Thank you.
Bravo.
Thanks.
So we always start with asking, like, what's on your stand, or in this case, why did you choose that performance to share with us today?
Well, I mean, it's a cool week in America, you know. Gotta love the national anthem, and really, it was an awesome experience filming that video too. And so the entire process was just one of kind of the cool things I was able to do over the lockdown. So
what was
that like?
Well, it was weird because, I mean, the stadium was empty. There were a couple grounds crew people working down on the field, and you know, Comerica Park is a really cool place to watch a baseball game, and just being there totally empty was weird. And so there was me, a couple camera guys, and I played through the anthem probably 6 or 7 times. And they got different shots, different angles for all of it. At one point, they had a drone flying over and taking shots as I was playing. That was a little trippy, but it was fun.
Very cool. Are you a big fan of the Tigers normally?
Yeah. I grew up on the west side of the state. And so watching baseball as a kid, grew up as actually an Atlanta Braves fan because they were always on TBS. I could always watch them.
Well, they were also awesome back in the day.
They were. Yeah. They were. And so, you know, watched a lot of Braves and also Tigers. And my son is a big Tigers fan. His T-ball team this year, he was the Tigers. And so, you know, it's fun.
Very cool.
So you mentioned you grew up on the west side of the state. So like, there's a few people who we've interviewed so far in the orchestra that are homegrown Michiganders, if you will.
Yep.
So like, how has that been, you know, just having, you know, being in the hometown orchestra, you know, having your family close by and being able to, you know, watch you if they wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. The DSO is really the closest place to home for me, and for my wife too. You know, we live 5 minutes from her parents. We have aunts and uncles for the kids around. My family is about 3 hours away, but they make the trek over pretty frequently. You know, if there's a big concert or something, they'll come check it out. You know, it's been great. I grew up in Michigan. I went to school, my undergrad in Michigan, and then went out to LA for a couple years to Colburn. And it was a huge culture shock, you know, moving from kind of the woods and the cornfields to downtown LA, and then went from LA to Jacksonville. And that was, you know, moving to a swamp. And so basically, once I had the opportunity, you know, to win the DSO job and move back up to Michigan, it was a no-brainer to move back here, obviously. And we've been super happy being back home.
Now we just got to move you to a mountain somewhere, and you've done all the terrains.
Yeah.
You could play like some like Reveille on top of a mountain. That'd be great.
Oh yeah. Love it.
So just looking at your at that space you're in, I see there's quite a bit of equipment behind you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you got back there?
Sure. So I brought some props today. So I've got a wall of trumpets, basically, as you can see. I think this one right here is my old C trumpet. It's kind of it's close to my heart. I won basically all my auditions on that. Have played it really since undergrad, and have kind of moved on to, I believe, this one now. But that's a horn I'll never get rid of. You never sell a horn you won an audition on. So
Is that a
I got to keep that one. For me.
Okay.
I've had people tell me that in the past, and it makes sense. It's a great horn. So I've got that. I've got, what else do we have? E flat D trumpet right there, used for like the Haydn, the Hummel, stuff like that. Rotary trumpet for Beethoven, Mozart.
Wait, so
Haydn.
Hunter, real quick, can you like kind of explain what the differences would be between those and why you would use them?
Yeah, so C trumpet is like the main instrument in the orchestra. I use that 98% of the time. And that's an orchestral C trumpet. It's in the key of C, unlike, your normal B flat trumpets that most of us learned on. And playing on C, it makes it easier to transpose. I think the color of the instrument works really well in American orchestras. And it's nice to have a home base in a really solid instrument. And then the other ones are kind of accessory horns, things for certain pieces. So the E flat D, the Haydn concerto is one that comes up a lot as a trumpet player. And so that I generally do the Haydn on, maybe some Ravel, stuff like that.
But is that to get more of a different quality of sound that like Haydn and like Ravel may have been writing for, or was it that it was closer to the instruments that they were writing for in general, and that's why, or is it both? Or
it's kind of those. It's also for the key, the Haydn in playing it on E flat trumpet in E flat. It lies, really well. I don't really know why we do it. It just feels better, I guess.
Sure.
For me.
Yeah. Hey, that's a valid answer.
Or for like Ravel Piano Concerto is a big excerpt for us. And doing that on D trumpet puts it in the key of F. And so you're basically like wiggling one finger to play it instead of kind of getting all around on the C trumpet. You have the high note is an F. Which is more in tune than like a G on C trumpet. And so there are different things for pitch that help. And it's an excuse to buy another trumpet. So
it's
you got to fill your wallet somehow.
Right.
So what else you got up there?
Yeah, so rotary trumpet, gold one right there. We've been using those the last couple seasons for Beethoven, Brahms, Haydn, Mozart in the DSO, and that is also in the key of C, but that gives kind of a warmer sound, a broader sound. It's a lot easier to fit into the context of the orchestra. And so that's been a lot of fun to kind of start playing in that rep.
Well, it's nice to have these different qualities to choose from for like the different rep and everything else, like to follow certain traditions that are there. Like I know you watch the Berlin Philharmonic and they're almost exclusively on rotaries, if not exclusively. And so to do that German rep on that kind of equipment, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, so Hunter, how do you make that decision about whether to play a piece like Beethoven on rotary or your normal C trumpet? Is that something that you do that you decide as principal, or is that something that's in conjunction with the conductor or music director?
It's kind of a collaboration.
Okay.
So with say Beethoven 3 coming up. I'm actually not playing it. I'm not sure what the rest of the section is doing, but that would be a conversation to have with Yoder. It's a, would you like the trumpets on rotary for this? If it was me playing it, I would have already sent an email saying, hey, I'd like to play rotary on this. Would you like it on rotary? Is that cool? And I mean, he could come back and say, no, I don't want rotary, and then we wouldn't use them.
Yeah.
Or, could say, yes, great, use the rotary, then we use them. And we kind of do the same with guest conductors. Also, people come in and doing any of that rep, we check with them first and make sure that that's their wish, and then we go from there.
Yeah, the last thing we ever want are surprises to show up and be like, oh, I guess you want this on a completely different instrument.
I mean, is there ever a situation where the music director would be like, the Detroit Symphony plays these pieces on rotary trumpet, and that is how we do things here, and then guest conductors don't have a choice? Or,
I mean, I guess they could do that. I think it comes down also to us having a choice. Because technically we don't have to play the rotary. We don't have to double on an instrument. And so if the music director or conductor requests it, then, I mean, we could still say, you want me to play, West Side Story on a rotary trumpet? I'm not doing that.
Okay.
Say, well, I want you to. Well, no, I don't feel comfortable doubling on this instrument. I can make it sound more like a rotary on a normal C trumpet if you'd like, but not playing rotary on West Side Story.
Yeah, I mean,
so we
as a musician
still have that.
As a musician who plays the cello in everything,
right?
There's not much choice to what we do, so it's interesting to have those conversations.
Yeah. And Hunter, there's a strange trumpet back there with a string on it. Can you explain that?
Yeah, you didn't know I played a stringed instrument, did you? No. So one of my big hobbies outside of playing the trumpet is being in the outdoors. I love to fish. I love to hunt, and I especially love to shoot archery. And so that's my bow right behind me there. I really shoot just about every single day. Have multiple targets out in my yard that I shoot at, and it's kind of like my stress relief. And so I'm able to go out there and bring the anxiety down a little bit, focus on hitting a nice small target. There's a book, Zen and the Art of Archery, I believe, and I try to get into that sort of relaxed mindset, and I think it makes me more of an enjoyable person to be around sometimes.
Unless you're on the receiving end of the bow.
Right. There are definitely times when my wife is like, could you maybe just go outside and shoot for a few minutes and come back? All right. Yeah, I can do that.
So that was one of our questions: is why do you like being alone in the woods so much? Was that your answer? Is that kind of
kind of, I love nature. I love being outside. I grew up basically in the woods. For any of you who have been to Blue Lake Fine Arts Camp over on the west side of the state, I grew up 5 minutes from there, in the woods. I mean, surrounded by trees. I think my parents had 15 acres. All the surrounding lots were the same. And so behind the houses was just woods. And so I grew up playing out in the woods, and that is, for me, I don't live over there anymore. Live over here, but the woods is still kind of like home. It's a nice place for me to go and reflect, relax. And I generally enjoy doing that by myself, so I don't have to talk to anybody. As terrible as that sounds, but it's nice to be able to get away a little bit. Experiencing nature, seeing sunrises, watching animals in their natural surroundings. It's cool. It's a cool thing to do. It's similar with fishing. Andres, you went with me this summer. And I think when Andres and I went out, I had been out fishing like 4 or 5 days in a row, getting out before the sun was up, watching the sunrise, the whole 9 yards. And the morning we went out was completely different than the rest of the days I had been out. Sunrise was different, everything. And the morning we went out was so cool.
That
like
was
there
amazing,
was
yeah.
like fog right on the water, and the clouds were super low. And at one time we were basically enveloped in fog, but had the sun coming up. And it was like we were on a different planet. Like it was super cool. And the next day, the sunrise was totally different. And so there's kind of that unpredictability of it, but also just the opportunity to experience it, which not a lot of people get to do. You know, I think you can wake up to see a sunrise and then go back to bed, or you can be like out on the water, surrounded by it, or out in the woods. And that's kind of what I prefer to do.
That's pretty great. Also, like as Principal Trumpet, you're often in maybe a higher pressure situation than many people would typically feel. You know, you have like the Mahler 5 opening solo, or you know, you've already mentioned the Ravel Piano Concerto. These like highly exposed situations. And then do you feel like this time in nature is, you mentioned it's like good to decompress, to have that time by yourself. Do you see a connection between the two, or is it like nice to have this big separation? Or is it both?
I think it's a little bit of both. You know, there are definitely times I'll go through a stretch in the orchestra where it's like, man, do I even want to touch this trumpet right now? And I can go out in the woods, I can be out there for a day, and I can come back and be like, cool, I can make music again. Awesome. And there are times when, you know, I'll have a stretch and be playing, and then I'll go out in the woods and be like, man, I just want to live out here. And, you know, maybe if I sold all of my instruments, I could afford to go live in the woods and just hang out. And then I realized, no, I can't do that. But, you know.
The inner monologue is constant.
Well, so Hunter, what is your mindset when you have to play a concerto or a prominent solo?
I think it's always evolving a little bit. Back in my younger years, I used to have kind of like a crush, kill, and destroy mindset, which was good. You know, I think playing Principal Trumpet, you don't have any sort of leeway to be apologetic. As soon as I start asking questions with my playing, that's usually when I mess up. And so there's a lot of kind of throw caution to the wind and just let her rip. You know, we have a saying, hit it hard and wish it well. You know, sometimes you just have to let a note go and hope that it finds where it's supposed to be. You know, I always say it's kind of joke, like the best thing about playing the trumpet is that everybody can hear you. And then the worst part about playing the trumpet is that everybody can hear you. And so the trumpet is so unforgiving sometimes, but I mean, you could be having like a great run, you know, things are feeling great, going through a concert, and then all of a sudden, just like the wheels could fall off the bus for like a bar, and then you're back in it. And so,
so how do you maintain focus
it's
through
just
that?
weird. I try to not get to that point and try to keep the wheels on the bus. I've been doing it long enough now, I can usually avoid that. But it goes back to like practice and audition prep and stuff like that, where just not letting any sort of mistake affect you negatively. Use it as an opportunity to do better. Where the first job I won was in Jacksonville, and the start of the semifinal round the first excerpt was Bach's B minor Mass, followed by Carmen, which are like two completely opposite. You're playing up in the stratosphere on piccolo, and then you have to play a low F on B flat trumpet, which is as low as we have to play. Go from as high as we have to play to as low in two different excerpts. And I played through the B minor Mass. It was good. And I was picking up my B flat trumpet and it was ready to go. And the proctor tapped me and was like, "You need to finish the excerpt." "What do you mean?" "I just did." And they had bracketed off a section that we never play, ever. Like, unless you're doing it in the orchestra, it's never an excerpt at the bottom of the page. It's like, you need to finish it. And so, I mean, I think I was 22, 23 at the time. It was like my third audition. And so I was kind of deer in the headlights, and I tried to play it, and it didn't go so well. And I do kind of what I do really well, and I got really mad. And my B flat was ready to go. And as I was playing the second part, I was like, these jokers made me play. Why are they making me play this? What? And like the inner monologue kind of took over for a second, but long enough for me to be like, I don't care what's happening with this. This Carmen that they're going to hear is going to blow them away. And so I don't think I had played the last note. Like, I was still holding it and I was going for the B flat, and maybe 2 seconds and I started the Carmen, and no one ever said anything about the second half of B minor Mass.
Wow.
I did get,
you made him forget it.
Yeah, comments that my Carmen was great. And that's kind of how I try to approach any sort of, accident where I'm not even going to think about it. It's gone. It's in the past. Just try to do better as you go forward.
Well, it is an exercise in futility. I feel like Andres and Hunter and I definitely understand when, and I'm sure Abe, to another level. As a solo instrument, you can't grab the notes that you just released back. They're out there, and it is as hard as you try. Like there's nothing you can do after they come out of the horn or you.
And sometimes you can't. It's as easy as making a face afterwards, where you give it away. I mean, sometimes it's obvious, but sometimes if you're just, people like play and they're just like, it's like, we didn't know until you made that face.
That's very true.
The game face. So you mentioned that you live in Grosse Ile with your kids Archer and Bella and your wife Kim. I mean, that's about as close as detached from society as you can get. How is that for being in the woods for you? How are you guys enjoying it out there?
It's good. My wife grew up here, so we're in her hometown. Okay. Her parents still live here. One of her brothers still lives here, and so we're close to family. Our house, so Grosse Ile, for people who don't know, is an island in the Detroit River, south of Detroit. It's like almost at the mouth of Lake Erie. And they've had some great efforts in like nature conservancy, where we have tons of open space on the island that can't be developed. It's always going to be nature. And our house backs up to one of those that I think is 13 acres of woods. It's right out my back door. And so that's nice. Yeah. There are many times I find myself just standing at our sliding door, just staring out at the woods. And Kim will come up to you like, "What are you doing?" It's like, "I'm looking at the woods. What do you want me to do?" And so that's cool. There aren't many places in like Metro Detroit where you can have this setting. And on top of that, being
there's a couple trees on Woodward, dude.
Yeah. With it being an island, it's so close to the river and fishing, and so I can have woods out my back door and then go pop my boat in the river and go fishing. And really, I think for us, it's the best place in the area to be. So super happy.
That's great.
Yeah, I respect your, I'm not a hunter myself, but, with the times you've gone out hunting and what you've explained to me, like, I respect it because you use, like, basically as much of the animal as you can, right? I mean, you like freeze the meat, well, there's an antler there to show, like there's like, so like, if you're going to do it, I respect the fact that you.
This is actually a shed antler that I found. So
you found
every
it,
year, every year bucks will shed their antlers. They'll fall off. And so this I found like 100 yards from my house out in the woods.
Man.
And this thing's a monster. I mean, that's a huge
insane,
deer.
Dude.
But yeah, I mean, that's a big part. Well, really the biggest part of hunting, I think, is, clean, fresh, organic meat that you've harvested yourself. You know where that animal came from, where your food is coming from, you can feed your family with it. And, that's, to me, the biggest part of hunting is being able to, provide for your family. And yeah, I use like every scrap of meat as possible. I know I've brought a few of you guys jerky in the past.
Yeah.
When I got my last deer, I think we went like 5 or 6 days in a row just eating venison. Fresh, delicious. Didn't have to go to the grocery store. Didn't have to risk catching COVID elbow to elbow in Kroger,
I mean, honestly, too easy are we, do we forget about, where our food comes from, like it's just, we're kind of disconnected with that process. So it's kind of cool to, that you do it all yourself,
Mm.
I mean, I understand that reverence for nature, like the appreciation of it all, and how the at home you can feel in the woods when you understand. The woods can be an intimidating place for a lot of people, but then when you get to know it, you can understand like just how the ecosystem works and what's going on there. It's really something to behold and treasure. I totally get that. But I'm struggling with any other questions that I think I can come up with. Is there?
Thanks for joining us, man. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much, Hunter.
Do I get a free T-shirt, right? That's part of it.
Yeah, you get a free T-shirt.
I wish we had gotten free T-shirts.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Well, Hunter, I appreciate being on the receiving end of your trumpet rather than the receiving end of your bow or your musket. So thanks for that.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a lot, Hunter.